Hey folks, welcome back to the Railguns and Dragons Reborn podcast. I am your host, Vince. This is an audio companion to what I do on YouTube, youtube.com/LevelDM. There'll be more exclusive stuff here on this podcast talking about rifts and Palladium. There's no real Palladium news to talk about today, so I'm just going to jump right into it. I was flipping through the RIFTS Sourcebook One this morning and landed on page 40. And you can grab the book and jump to page 40 if you want. It reminded me of something I don't think we talk about enough. See, one of the things I love doing every now and then is just kind of grabbing a book off the shelf and just flipping to a random page and asking my simple question, what does this page have to say? What was Kevin trying to tell us? I know sometimes it's like a crazy weapon, or sometimes it's a weird OCC you've kind of probably forgot about. Sometimes just a paragraph of, a setting of information back in the 90s you probably skimmed right over because you wanted to get to the cool robots and stuff like that. I get it. Palladium has a lot of really cool stuff. Well, today it was the Triax. Now, if you're a longtime Rifts fan, you already know the name. The Triax eventually got an entire world book devoted to it. Giant robots, power armor, incredible equipment, all that amazing crap that you love seeing in Palladium. But what's interesting is this page comes from before all that, before Europe was really explored, before we knew what the new German Republic looked like, before Triax became one of the biggest names in the setting. Back then it was just a mystery. It was mysterious. You didn't know anything really about it. It was just this company over in Europe making incredible advanced military hardware, and that's really about it. And somehow they made it even cooler. I think young gamers who discover rifts today kind of miss something we all experienced back then. We didn't have 35 years worth of books to look at. We didn't even have YouTube videos then because YouTube wasn't a thing. Internet was barely a thing. We didn't even have fan wikis explaining every little detail. We had AOL hometown pages and GeoCity pages that sometimes popped up. Sometimes it was just little things here or there that were paragraph explaining something, maybe just a picture, a few references, throughout books here and there, and our imagination had to fill the rest. And honestly, that mystery was part of the magic. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, looking at books and back then, and I have to say my imagination probably ran a little bit more wild than it should have when it comes to today. Now, today, I can be like, oh, okay, well, Triax, let me just go Google that and go to a YouTube page and listen to some guy talk about it. Rogue Scholar MDC. Great YouTube channel, by the way. So, but page 40 isn't really trying to sell you a rifle or a robot. It's quietly telling you there's an entire world outside of North America. It's just telling you that it's there. And it's changing. And here's where the page really gets kind of interesting to me. It mentions that the coalition states aren't exactly thrilled that Triax equipment is finding its way into North America. Ha ha ha. Now think about that for just a second. The coalition isn't afraid because the Triax is evil. They're afraid because someone else is catching up to their technology. That's a huge distinction. When people kind of first discover rifts, it's easy to think the coalition is just the bad guys. Power armor, skull helmets, huge military, book burning, psychic registration. And to be honest, in the 90s, I thought it was friggin' cool as hell, the coalition. I know, obviously, you understand the difference between what a bad guy is in real life versus a bad guy in a game. So let's get that straight out in front. Anyway, It was pretty easy to paint them with, like a one-stroke brush, just make them that. But Palladium always did a better job than that. The Coalition wasn't trying to be the only civilization left. It really wanted to be the dominant civilization. Technology equaled power to them. Manufacturing was also power. Railguns were power. Name of the podcast. Power armor was power. It's right in the name. Control over production. That was really what it was all about. And suddenly there's this company across the Atlantic producing world-class equipment. If those weapons start flowing into Free Quebec, Laszlo, the Tomorrow Legion, mercenary companies, independent kingdoms, well, suddenly the Coalition isn't the only kid on the playground with the biggest toys anymore. That's some interesting, really good world building if you think about it, because it isn't really about equipment, it's about economics. It's all about the politics. It's trade. It's an arms race, right? You know, we always kind of joke that Rifts is like the kitchen sink fantasy here. You got everything thrown into there. Kitchen sink. Dragons, juicers, demons, magic, aliens, glitter boys, vampires, Nazis with robots. Everything gets thrown into the blender. But underneath all that insanity is a setting that actually thinks about how civilization survives. Like, who builds those guns? Who repairs them? Where do replacement parts really come from? And who trains the pilots? Who pays for all this? Those questions make the world feel kind of believable in a sense, and Palladium would often answer that in just a paragraph or two. And it's usually tucked away in between some rules and a source book between statistics, and you kind of glance over it. I think that's one of the reasons I still just enjoy flipping through the book every now and then. Not because I'm looking for the next biggest gun, I'm looking for those little, like, tidbits and nuggets that remind me that this wasn't just a game about combat, it was about a living world. And sometimes you find that one paragraph that could completely change how you looked at the setting, and that's exactly what this page does, in a sense. Because after reading it, you stop to think about the Triax as the company that makes cool robots. Instead, you start realizing the Triax is one of the reasons the balance of power on Rift's Earth was constantly shifting back and forth. Every shipment that crossed the Atlantic had consequences. Every new customer weakened someone else's monopoly. Every new suit of armor in the wrong hands made tomorrow just a little less predictable. And in a post-apocalyptic world, that's sometimes more dangerous than a dragon flying around. You know what else I kind of think that made them very memorable? It wasn't an anticipation. Back then, every new world book felt like a new opening, another piece of the planet. Rift's Earth wasn't one giant setting that arrived all at once. God, no. A lot of that stuff just kind of sat there unwritten up. It kind of unfolded every time you got a new book. You learned about North America first because, well, Palladium's here in North America. Then you got the Vampire Kingdoms. Oh, one of my favorite books, the Vampire Kingdoms, the first original copy. Then we got some England, then some Japan, Russia, Africa, Atlantis. Each book kind of was pieces of the map just being expanded just a little bit further apart every time. So when Sourcebook One casually mentions this powerful manufacturer in Europe, your mind immediately starts asking the question, wait, what's Europe like? Who's buying this stuff there? How did they survive the Great Cataclysm? Are they friends with the Coalition? Do they have glitter boys? That curiosity is really powerful. Modern games sometimes have the habit of explaining everything immediately. Every faction has to have 10 pages of lore. Every kingdom a complete history. Every mystery gets solved. Rifts didn't do it that way. A lot of Palladium stuff was, here's a touch about it. It simply hinted it, and that's it. Your imagination had to, do the rest. Hints are dangerous, because your imagination almost always fills something even bigger. I remember talking with friends back then, along before the Triax World Book came out. Everybody had like these little theories here and there. Maybe Europe had become one giant military state, or maybe it was cleaner than North America. Maybe they had entire armies of giant robots. Maybe they had technology we've never seen before. None of us knew. We all had to kind of guess. And that was the fun. It was something that I think we lost a little bit about in modern gaming along the way. We're used to, having every answer just a few clicks away now these days. Back then, you couldn't spend months. Back then, you could spend months wondering what a single paragraph actually meant because you had nothing else. I mean, you could write in to Palladium Games and ask and wait and wait and wait and hope you were answered. I mean, they did answer people. That's not like, TSR, but they did answer people. So there was always that. And then eventually, after a while wondering and just kind of waiting, you eventually would see a World Book on the shelf at the gaming store. And the amazing thing, it actually delivered a good amount. Triax and the New German Republic wasn't just some throwaway expansion. It became one of the defining books for the entire line. It gave us incredible robots, power armor, new weapons, new blah, 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 blah. Politics, a completely different flavor of civilization than we've seen in North America. And you know what? It's impressive, if you think about it. One little mention tucked away in Sourcebook One eventually grew into one of the most, I wouldn't say beloved, but one of the better Palladium books ever published. That's a good term. I'm going to say that's good long-term world building for Kevin Sambidia. And the writers in him planted these little seeds here and there. And sometimes those seeds wouldn't bloom for a long time. Trust me, we've been waiting for books for years. I'm sure people out there are screaming about that right now. When they finally did get those seeds to grow, it kind of felt like a payoff. Not because they surprised you, because they remembered certain things. They didn't forget that little reference from years ago. They expanded on it. And as a game master myself, I think that's one of the biggest lessons you could take away from the old RIFTS books. You don't have to explain everything today. Mention a distant kingdom, mention a company, whatever, an artifact, blah, blah, blah. Then leave it alone. Let your players wonder, because curiosity is one of the most powerful storytelling tools you can have in your arsenal. Sometimes the thing that players remember the most isn't the dragon they fought, it's kind of the mystery you've never completely answered. And maybe that's the biggest reason I wanted to talk about this page, not because Triax is cool, though they are. Not because the Coalition was worried, that's obvious once you stop and think about it. No, I want to talk about this because this page is a reminder of how differently RIFTS approached world building when it came to the game itself. And today, a lot of books feel like giant encyclopedias. Every city has like a giant timeline, a ruler, 3 pages of history, blah, 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 organization charts and stuff like that. And if that's what you enjoy, cool, but sometimes less is more. A paragraph that sparks your imagination can be worth more than 20 pages that answers every possible question. And I think that's what made early RIFTS books special. They invited you to imagine. They trusted game masters to connect the dots. They trusted players to ask questions, and sometimes, years later, Palladium would answer one of those questions with an entire source book, and that was kind of rewarding. When I started playing Palladium Fantasy 1E, the original fantasy, or just called Palladium, I remember starting a campaign, and it was in the the Opiate Lands or something like that? And there was nothing about it. It was just grasslands. I took the grasslands from there and just did a whole campaign in that area. It was nothing written out what was there. No real monsters or anything, no civilizations. I planted it all there because they left it wide open for me to just explore. And as a GM, I love that. And maybe not every GM really likes that, because some GMs want to be handed everything and they just want to run the game that way. I'm one of the GMs I'm a reactionary GM. I like to present all these possibilities. Let's see what the players have to say when I present them, and then I react to what they do. And we keep going back and forth like that. And that's how I think players stick around in my games for 10 plus years at this point. They enjoy the presentation I give them. I don't railroad them into anything. So I think that's going to wrap things up for like the one page or the random page, we're going to call this. So tell me what you think in the comments on Spotify. You can head to railgunsanddragons.com and you can comment on the blog there. Follow it as well. You can head over to patreon.com/theevildm if you want to donate a few bucks here or there. You don't have to, no big deal. Everything's always free. Gonna head out. Keep it original, keep it old school. Good night. God bless everybody. You've been listening to Railguns and Dragons Reborn, a podcast about RIFTS. Head over to railgunsanddragons.com for more information.